Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking Baltimore positive around here. We got a Maryland Crab Cake Tour thing in progress all summer long. The Maryland Lottery putting us out with this. Liberty Pure, my dear friends, are doing well water and clean water and fresh water and plumbing water, as well as Curio Wellness and Far and Daughter, all putting us together for our 27th anniversary. Soon cometh in August to eat a lot of food, swallow a lot of crab cakes and crab soup and all sorts of things. And my favorite things to eat, that will begin on August the 3rd, which is my mother's birthday, my cat's birthday, and our 27th anniversary of doing this crazy, crazy thing. I've collected so many people. I'm collecting some of them to get to Deep Pasquale's on the 8th of July on Tuesday morning, including Dan Rodricks, Pete Caringi, Joe Giordano. It's feeling like an all-star team for All-Star Week at Deep Pasquale's down at Canton. I promise I'll be having meatballs before 10 a.m. and sausage and peppers and onions. And then on the 10th, we're going to be at Costas and Timonium. No crabs, but plenty of crab cakes. The new location there at the racetrack. This guy is no stranger to Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Certainly not to my life. I've known him for more than 3 decades now. We're going back to probably All-Star Game 93 is probably around the time I met Pete Williams. He is a baseball historian. He is a triathlete and an athlete, and Tampan, not by birth, but by choice. When they gave him a choice to go cover baseball, he's like, I'll go to Tampa. And he never left. He is still associated with baseball, but as he likes to say, off the radar, unless some guy like me calls him and says, hey, dude, what's going on with the Rays? And the Orioles are playing the Rays, and my team's in last place, and what the heck's going on? And dude, it gives me an excuse to do other things than find you in Tampa once a year and try to have a beer when you're not flooded, and talk a little baseball. Pete Williams was a longtime scribe at USA Baseball Weekly and USA Today. He's written books on memorabilia, which makes him one of my favorite people, and he's one of my favorite dudes as well. What's going on, Pete? How you been, man?
Yeah, doing great, Nestor. Great to be here with you. And things are exciting here in the Tampa Bay area with possible new ownership of the Rays. And of course, the Rays playing extremely well. Nobody expected this because here they are playing in a 10,500 seat stadium, Steinbrenner Field, 35 miles from where they normally play at Tropicana Field, which is still a mess and plenty of uncertainty surrounding this team in terms of where they're going to play next year, where they're going to play 3 to 5 years from now. But nonetheless, it doesn't affect the product on the field. They are just rolling, and the Yankees have got them in their tailwinds right now.
When did you get your gig at USA Today? Like, is that 90, not the 190, somewhere in the early 90s? When did you like
Yeah.
start baseball journalism?
Yeah, 1991. It was good for me. Like you, I was one of those people who knew exactly what they wanted to do when they went off to college and whatnot. And so, right out of college,
Where'd you go to school?
UVA, which
Okay.
really is,
Sorry.
yeah, I agree.
Wrong side of the ACC. Very, very much so.
We could talk at UVA at lengths and what a train wreck they are on so many levels right now. But right out of school, I'd interned with USA Today prior to my senior year of college, and when during my senior year of college, they formed USA Today Baseball Weekly, and they were going to hire me as a college sports writer. And I said, well, how about this Baseball Weekly thing? And they're like, yeah, sure. We don't have anybody right now. I think they had hired Paul White, the great Paul White, who was our original editor, and I was the second
True
person.
Buffalonian, by the way, there.
Yes,
Real,
he is.
real Buffalo
Absolutely.
man.
Yes. And so I was the second person hired, even though I had another 4 months of college left to go. And so
They hired Rasig next to do cartoons, I think.
that's right. That's right. He was there from the beginning as well. And so yeah, off June of 1991, I was off and running with Baseball Weekly, and I stayed there pretty much for the rest of the 90s, which we think of now as the steroid era, a very colorful time to be covering baseball.
I prefer to think it as the Androstein Dione period of time.
Yeah, there's
Um, So, I mean, the reason I even date you like that is to say when you came into this, Camden Yards was coming online. You lived in the region. Arlington, Virginia was sort of the home base for USA Today. And one of the two of you were always in the press box because the Orioles were the home team. There weren't no Nationals or no Senators. And the Orioles were great. And, Ripken was on his way to doing things. And Camden Yards was where Larry King was here. And George Will was there. And it was just that thing, right? So, fast forward all of these years, We went to spring training, probably not together, but together. I'm sure I ran into you down there in Florida in the 90s, tripping over each other when the Orioles were figuring out Al Lang Stadium on St. Pete and Sarasota, and then Angelos buying the team and the strike and Lords of the Realm. All of that happened, Ripken streak, and then Davey Johnson and steroid. I mean, those are 1 year, and those are snapshots of your All-Star game here in '93. All of those things. So you and I were always entangled, and we're down in Florida, and we saw that market. And they saw that market, Major League Baseball, Bud Selig, after the insurrection with the commissionership there, and you moved to Florida. Your whole life has been in Florida because of baseball. It chased you down there. Rick Vaughn's going to join me this week from the former Orioles, and Charles Steinberg painted the picture of the final day in '91 with Rick with me about a month and a half ago. I'm now, let's see, 3 owners in, right? We had Jacobs, Angelos, I'm at Rubenstein. Your life got chased to Tampa, and they had an owner there named Vince Namoili, and I told a comedy piece with Rick Vaughn and Charles Steinberg a couple of weeks ago. I told Joel Poiley that story, that I had a plane ride with him one time. I sat next to him in the Twins on the way to Tampa 25 years ago, and now you're on to Sternberg and about to sell. Could you have envisioned in 1991 that the Orioles would be on a second train wreck ownership, that Tampa would have failed miserably in baseball, like in so many ways, but been good on the field? The Miami thing is whatever that spaceship they're playing in. I mean, like, it's insane the pathway that Major League Baseball has taken and how the Expos have affected the Orioles, which affected the Nationals. Just how many things they've destroyed and wrecked and screwed up, and as Deepak Chopra would say, the pure potentiality that they have. It boggles my mind. Like when I think about the Tampa situation and how they screwed baseball up in a place where baseball could have easily worked.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complex situation. I mean, I left the DC area to come to Tampa at the end of 1997, and we think, geez, I think the Oriole Park Camden Yards sellout streak, I think, was still alive at that point. That's
They
how
hadn't even
far.
signed Albert Bell yet.
Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, you think of how many permutations that the Orioles have had just on the field since then, just staggering. But I think just watching the Rays and formerly the Devil Rays here from the beginning, it's been quite a run. And Vince Namoli, he got them over the hump just to get a team, and he was a he was a complex guy, a guy who managed every penny. He fought every battle. I mean, he came from the corporate world. He just did not get running a baseball team at all. There was no tact to the man. He was a General Patton kind of guy, and just. But I will say this about Vince Namoli: the guy was passionate about Devil Rays and Rays baseball. I mean, the guy went to every home game. He went to most road games. I mean, the current owner, Stuart Sternberg, I don't think has been to 100 Rays home games in his 20 years of ownership. And but that's the one knock I have on Stu Sternberg. And that's, if you or I had made a fortune in finance by the end of by our mid 40s, right? And you bought the Tampa Bay Rays, what's the first thing you would have done? Moved to Tampa Bay, right? You just said, hey, I can live absolutely anywhere. Why am I staying in Westchester County or somewhere in New York? I could move to Tampa Bay. You'd think you might have bought a house in the Tampa Bay area, something Stu Sternberg never did until like COVID. So he went 15, 18 years without even having a home here. Heck, wouldn't you do that for tax purposes, if nothing else? And yet he's probably never seen, excluding the postseason, and the Rays have played a lot of postseason games, but I'd be willing to bet he has not seen 100 regular season home games in the Tampa Bay area in the 20 years that he's been there. I mean, why else, if you're filthy rich at 46 and buy a sports team, would you not come live in that town and go to like every game? I think most of us, we would probably be like young Mark Cuban, right? We would be on the right behind the bench and be allowed
Oh,
obnoxious.
I'd have my own bobblehead. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't even be that dumb. I mean, I'm 56, and if I was that wealthy, I would not be making a bobblehead of myself.
Right.
I just wouldn't be doing that. And that happened here as a first act. So when you see stuff like that, and when you, like, on the inside, 15, 18 months into this now, it, be careful what you wish for in new ownership, right? I mean, I'm saying to you, you're pissed at Stu Sternberg and the Lamole thing, and the roof's blown off, and they're playing in a minor league. They don't have a stadium, sort of weirdly in peril. This Jacksonville billionaire is going to come in. I've been waiting my whole effing life for a new owner, and I met this guy last November, and I just don't get it. I mean, I don't, and I get that you get so wealthy that you buy these things as toys, but I thought that there would be some intellect and some emotional intelligence behind this. But I've really learned far too late in my life that the money doesn't necessarily buy anything that goes along with it. And many respects, it masks it. And the people that buy these teams now are what makes them awful. I mean, what made the Marlins awful was the owner. What made the Orioles awful was the owner. Wasn't the city, wasn't the fans, wasn't and then on top of that, the Major League Baseball people, when the Orioles go from playing in Sacramento one day to playing at George Steinbrenner Field and in a double-A ballpark the next day, and and I just everything about it says, you people have your shit together? I mean, does anybody there, we're going to put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. I mean, what are you guys doing? Like, you have $1 billion industry that's dying. You haven't figured out TV. You haven't figured out young people. You really haven't figured out Hispanic people beyond Dodger Stadium. You certainly haven't figured out anyone of color in the game or in the pipeline of the game. And golf's already taken for that. and I'm like, I'm just blown away at just the ineptitude of it and where I am in my life at 56 to say, dude, when I'm 66 and 76, unless I'm getting paid to do this, I might not be watching it. And my name's Aparicio.
Yeah, exactly. And so and you compare baseball, say, to the NBA, which I have found unwatchable for a long time, right? And nobody was a bigger NBA fan than I was. I mean, growing up in the DC area, I didn't move to DC until 1980. So in other words, I missed the last 2 years where the Bullets Wizards were actually relevant. But I was a huge fan of the Bullets for a long time until I moved here in
You
1997.
got Jeff Rulin and you liked it.
Well, you know what? Those teams were fun. The Beef Brothers, right? Rulin, Rick Mahorn. I mean, they got the last good years of Bernard King and Moses Malone. They were Manute Bol, Muggsy Bogues. Those were fun teams. Don't get me wrong. But the point is, I find today's NBA unwatchable, but it's never been more popular. I mean, I have two college-age sons who love the NBA. Look, I don't want to watch 7-footers like Joel Embiid take fadeaway jump shots. I just don't. I want to see guys pound and go inside. I
Grew
want to
up
see
in the Big
Moses.
East, dog.
Yes, I want old Big East. I want mid-90s New York Knicks. I want all that. I don't want to watch Kevin Durant taking 30 jump shots a game. He's 7 feet tall. I don't want to watch that. Now, this said, the NBA has never been more popular. I can't figure it out, but it is. Now, getting back to baseball, baseball's never been less popular. And so,
But they won't say, hey, if you said that in front of Rob Manfred, he'd piss in your eye and he'd show you, he'd have stats that somebody had. Like literally, I feel it, you see it, I see it. They don't even acknowledge it. They're in denial, man. They really are.
Well, they'll say, look, we're a $10 billion business. 20 years ago, we were a $4 billion business. I'm like, well, okay, there's been inflation in everything. I mean, you've succeeded on the bottom line kind of despite yourself. But yes, when we measure it in terms of popularity, where you are in the national consciousness, I can remember Howie Long. Remember when Howie Long went into the Hall of Fame, 30 years ago? He got up there and he said, baseball might be America's national pastime, but football is America's national passion. And that was 30 years ago. I don't think anybody's arguing that baseball's still the national pastime. It's the national past its time. No question about it. But there's no question what the NFL has done, to run laps around baseball. And now the NBA has. And,
well, hockey's crushing it in your market. In
yes.
Tampa, the NHL came in and just took over. And in Nashville, where they were going to get a baseball team first, they got a football team first. They got a hockey team. They can have an NBA team if they want one because they could support it there financially. And your team's playing in a minor league park. Sacramento can't find a home. They talk about Montreal. What happened to Charlotte, Nashville, and Austin, and Nolan Ryan, and the Pittsburgh Pirates? And there's just so many black eyes in the sport right now that have to do with interest level that they just I just feel like their heads in the sand. And I always felt like, Pete, like somebody was going to come in when Angelos went into disrepair and come in here and try to fix it, but they don't know how to fix it. They really don't know how to fix the streaming thing. And whatever the country club pass that's going to make me a Birdland guy, whatever that thing's going to do, that I'm going to give them $99 a year to get a ticket, a hot dog, the games on TV, whatever that subscription's going to be for baseball specifically, and then all the sports. I don't think they have a model, Pete. And the model is get $20 from people when they come in, get $20 for a beer, Dewey, Cheatham, and Hal, sell some jerseys, give away some bobbleheads, milk some cows. Like, I don't see an idea here. Fixing the game's good. I mean, Luke yells at me and says, "Hey, they got pace of play together. The game's better." But is it when everybody's throwing 99 miles an hour and their arms are falling off? Like, I don't know. And I'm not here to bitch and make it all awful, but you're in a market where you might lose your baseball team and the new owner's coming in and they're trying to fix it. And I'm trying to figure out, like, this new owner came in here and he's already screwed up what was left of it, because he's going to have to go sell season tickets at the end of the year to the Birdland people here. And last place, no bueno, Pete. No bueno. It's going to look like Tampa Bay here next year.
Well, I think the biggest part, and you hit on it, is no one can figure out how to watch their team on TV anymore. How you can piece it together and whatnot. And a Braves fan I know put it succinctly the other day. He goes, "We all grew up in the 80s and late 70s where the Braves were all we could watch, right? That was almost literally all we could watch on
Channel
cable."
17 on my cable.
Yes,
And I only had
exactly.
31 channels. I had OR too. I had OR on channel 9.
Right. But now Braves fans are held hostage, like so many of us, where we can't figure out how to watch our team and how many different streaming cable combinations we have to get in order to watch some of the games, not all of the games. And that's a problem here in the Tampa Bay area, as it is in so many parts of the country, because of all the things that have blown up and all the battles and the cables and everything else that
Two
nobody.
countries, by the way, and I'll anecdotally give you this one. Opening day, Luke and I went to Toronto. They didn't let me in. They put Luke in the press box in left field, where they're going to be moving the Jim Henneman press box a week after he's dead. They put the press release out on video that they're killing the press box that they named after him, my colleague. So I'm going to fight for that. But the second game in Toronto, I paid to get in first day, opening day, walked around, drank beer with my friends, did the thing. The second game, my ankle was cut. I didn't want to walk around the city in Toronto. It was 28 degrees. And Luke went over to the game, and I'm in my hotel room in Toronto. It was a Friday night game. I went down to the keg, as any good Canadian would do, and got some happy hour sliders and a discounted Cabernet. I listened to Canadians destroy America everywhere at the bar, because it was the beginning of all the nonsense. March 30th, it was tariffs. It was you're going to be the 51st state. That's what was on the Apprentice that week. And the bartender, I'm in there at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, and the Raptors were home. And I said to him, "Will the game be on here tonight?" He's like, "No, my friend, Apple TV. Nobody in the city has Apple TV. The Blue Jays won't be on tonight. They will not be on television in this country tonight. Not in this city, not in any bar." And I'm in the third most cosmopolitan city in this continent, maybe fourth. I'll give you Mexico City, but they're trying in a hockey town where they've won basketball championships, and Joe Carter was 33 years ago now, 32 years ago. I'm in the city. I went to my hotel room. The game wasn't on, and I'm not giving Apple TV anything beyond what Johnny Cash would give them. I'm in Toronto and nobody's watching the second game of the year, Pete. But I did get Roku on Sunday, and Buck and Nelly were unbelievable on the call. So if that matters. But to your point, you can't find the game. And this is 50 old white guy stuff. I can't find the game. I don't want the game. I don't want to give Apple my thing or whatever. And Luke, who's only 40, 41, would yell at us and say, "Well, get used to it. This is the rest of your life." And I'm like, "Well, you know what I got used to? Not watching the NBA like Pete." Right? I mean, and that should be their greatest fear, that people like you and me who love baseball don't want to be a part of it anymore. It's insane.
I mean, we talk about any rehab program talks about 30-day habits, right? If you go 30 days without something, you kind of get used to not having it, right? And so something that we're addicted to, watching baseball, right? It's been a 55-year addiction for me, but if I can't watch it, well, I'm no longer addicted to it, and I learned to find other things to do. And so, and that's what I think baseball's biggest problem is that you have an aging demographic that can no longer go to the ballpark but is willing to watch your product on TV. But if they can't do that, then they're not going to consume your product at all. And if they can't do that, then you're going to lose what is your demographic right now, which is to say, white guys over the age of 55. We're in that demographic.
But we're the ones that buy the club seats. We're the ones that would have value in this. We're the ones that would want air conditioning. We're the ones that like old logos instead of these spaceships that they're putting on that don't mean anything to anybody. And if they're really connecting with the young people, why aren't they in the seats? Pete Williams is here. He is a longtime baseball author, historian. Now, let me turn it the other way. Because anybody, oh, you're nasty, you're negative, you're Baltimore positive. We're in last place. The team sucks. The owner's making bobbleheads of himself. He's been hiding. The general manager fired the manager and hid for 3.5 days and reemerged in the Milwaukee dugout on Tuesday night after firing. I mean, we're at a point where there's no accountability. People named Aparicio who've owned radio stations dedicated to sports for 30 years can't get a press credential because the owner's following the protocol of the creep who destroyed the franchise for 3 decades, but they're not acknowledging the trauma of 10,000 empty seats at their playoff game last year. Let's go positive. What in your market? Now here, I thought it was going to be new ownership and a bath for the stadium, right? And young great players, right? Jackson Holiday, Gunnar. That was going to be the thing that got this thing from crawling back up to walking, back up to running, back up to being what you found in 1993 at the All-Star game here, which is vibrant downtown, 3 million people coming to games, black people, white people, young people, Hispanic people coming to the games, filling up the hotels, buying the swag, finding hero worship in Gunnar Henderson or Jackson Holiday that they found in Cal Ripken, that they found in Eddie Murray and Jim Palmer and Brooks and Boog, right? And Frank, I don't want to forget him. Tampa, what's the temperature for like crystal ball this in 1997? If I would have told you it turned out the way it did, you would have said, no, Tampa baseball will work here and they'll get a new stadium and the dome might not be the answer, but they'll figure it out. And it's baseball and it's Tampa and it's Darryl Strawberry and it's Wade Boggs and it's Fred McGriff and it's Doc Gooden and it's all of that. Gary Sheffield, I'll throw them all in. What saves baseball in Tampa? I mean, be positive about this and think that we can hire Rick back and bring you and me and the best ideas ever and bring Joe Madden back as the executive something to the whatever and appeal to the Lightning fan. Like, how would successful Tampa baseball look to this billionaire in Jacksonville who's going to come down and maybe buy it?
Well, I think two things. I think one, if they can continue the master of analytics and everything else, because I mean, look, how this team has been run from an on-field standpoint has been nothing short of masterful. I mean, these guys, whatever algorithm they're using, whatever players they put out there on any given night, whatever trade they make, whatever move, however they're managing that has been an A plus plus. Nobody has done that better in the Tampa Bay Rays for the last 15 years. They deserve all the credit in the world for that. And whoever buys that team, they need to keep that management team intact. Now, what they need more than anything is a new stadium. And of course, people debate that to no end here. Where should the stadium be? Whatever. I mean, we did have that deal in place until the Hurricanes kind of blew that up. And we can say who's at fault there. Is it Stu Sternberg? Is it the city of St. Pete? Is it the Pinellas County Commission? Who knows?
What was the plan? What was going to happen?
Yeah. So what they were going to do is they were going to build a new stadium with the surrounding infrastructure of everything, bars, restaurants, housing, and everything, right next to the existing Tropicana field.
The battery model at the foot of the Trop, basically.
Yeah,
and that
exactly.
area is kind of gutted out, kind of like not a lot going on over there. It's away from the water and kind of a new little downtown they're trying to create, right?
But it has blown up. I mean, the downtown has gone crazy. And then on the other side of the Trop, also, that's become a very popular area of bars, restaurants.
Toward Madeira Beach, correct?
Yeah. So exactly. So you have this 80-ish acres that is the Trop footprint, basically, that they were going to redo. And that deal was in place. But after the hurricanes, everything was off the table. The Rays backed off, and the city of St. Pete and new Pinellas County commissioners didn't want to renegotiate the deal. And so here we are. And so Stu Sternberg, who did engender a lot of goodwill just because of the way the team was run for the last 20 years of his ownership, nonetheless has become cast, rightly so, as the guy who has to go. And so that's why new ownership. But I think the long-term thing, it's going to be new ownership and a new ballpark, whether that's where they're planning to do it in downtown St. Pete, or they're going to revisit anything and everything in terms of other Tampa Bay area sites. That's the long-term hope for the future of the Tampa Bay Rays.
I'm going to give Stu Sternberg the benefit of the doubt that he's taken some tax benefits from owning the team in Florida, even though he didn't take citizenship down there. What did he buy it for? What's he selling it for?
Oh goodness. I mean, the numbers he's getting it for 1.8 billion. I mean, he went in 2005, he led a group for 150 million. And how much of that was actually his? Who knows? Maybe 50
So
million.
he's not fat, right? He's not like he would be one of the least wealthy baseball owners in a way that like ponying up 800 million the way that Anschutz would, or the way that the clown that stole the Rams out of St. Louis did, the Missourian who took the Rams to LA. Like building a stadium or being a part of that, he didn't have the financial teeth or want to do that. Rubenstein has portrayed himself as being that guy, but he's got 600 million to start with from the government. That's not going to happen in Florida, right? That's just that the kind of deals they have here to take $600 million and do away with the Jim Henneman press box and put a facing on it. And Tropicana Field was unsavable as a facility, right? Like there was no fixing that thing up. It was going to get raised, right? No matter what.
Yeah, there was no model that you could remodel Tropicana Field. And you know what? In fairness to the Trop, though, if you've been to places like where the Houston Astros play or where the new Texas Rangers play, really those are just nicer versions because they always have the roof closed. It's artificial turf. Those are just nicer versions of the Trop because it's 110 degrees.
I
And
never hated the Trop. I'm honestly, I never hated the Trop. I went there many times. I sort of get the Tampa thing about the bridges and whatever, but I didn't think it was a lousy experience at all. I always get treated well there. The ushers, I mean, just the way the vibe of going to a game there, it's 150 outside. You come inside. I went to the one in Miami and hated it way more. It was brand new because it was awful. It was way more artificial. It felt a little gritty to be in Tampa. I felt like there was something about it that they could make it a tough place to play if they could ever figure it out. But Pete, my dying story on this, and I'm sure you were at this game. My wife and I were in Florida, early days of YouTube. I would say 07, 08, and the Ravens played the Dolphins at 1 o'clock in Miami. And game 7 of the ALCS was that night in Tampa. And I was covering the game. I went from the locker room in Miami out the door into my wife's rental car, and she drives like Steve McQueen. And we hit the Alligator Alley, and we made top of the second inning for the ALCS game 7. I paid $15 for a ticket that night, and
yes.
there were 5,000 empty seats in the upper deck, and it was mainly Red Sox fans. Now I'm going back 17, 18 years, and I'm thinking to myself, man, you must really not care about the baseball team if you're not willing to pay $20 to come see him play in the ALCS. This is Joe Madden. It's all of that. And I look up now, and it really has never gotten any better. I mean, for all the winning and all of that, I think of the last 15 years of your franchise and think, if you put that kind of winning down almost anywhere, certainly in Baltimore, if they had been that good, if the Buck thing would have held on for another 10 years, they would have sold tickets here. You know what I mean? Something good, even though Angelos owned it, could have happened out of that. But I look at the Tampa thing and say the stadium was their doom, right? Like how you and I feel about the stadium was not how people in Tampa felt about the stadium, right?
No, there's no question. But I think the thing I always explain to people, if you live in the Baltimore, D.C. area, if you live in Atlanta, you live in L.A., you live in most parts of the country, you're accustomed to driving 30 to 45 minutes to get anywhere. It's just the nature of the beast. And Tampa, for the longest time, has been very provincial. They've been separated by the bridges. People move here from somewhere else. Maybe they've retired, downsized, whatever. They don't want to drive anywhere. And so you get that mentality. And so it's very hard to get people to say, hey, I'm going to drive 40 minutes to tonight's game. Okay. Which, again, if you're from the DC area like I am, like 40 minutes, man, I think of all those years I went from Alexandria, Virginia to Landover, Maryland to see the Bullets, the Caps, concerts, whatever. I'd be thrilled if I got there in 40 minutes, right? But it's a different mentality down here. And that's what's always been the struggle. People are like, oh, I just don't want to drive 40 minutes. Everyone wants the stadium to be 10 minutes from where they are, and you can't do that, no matter where you put it. You could put it in Tampa, you could put it right next to Ray J. That's true, but you're going to lose all the people in Pinellas County. You'll get more from Hillsborough County, and that's fine. But so there's no simple stadium solution. Wherever they build this stadium, and I'm sure it'll be lovely, it'll be modeled after the Battery in Atlanta, it'll be a real estate windfall for the
You
whoever
believe
the
it's happening now because this guy's buying it. So you believe the team's staying
Oh,
because of
absolutely.
this.
Yes, I don't think they're going to Nashville. I don't think they're going to somewhere else. I think they will stay. But again, much like we've seen in many communities, like Pittsburgh, for instance, the new stadium is not a cure-all for revenue. It's not a cure-all, certainly for the Pirates, for how they perform on the field. But nonetheless, I think it's going to be it'll help. But to your point, I think the biggest challenge we've always had here in Tampa Bay is that there are other things to do, right? Yes, the Buccaneers are always going to be popular, but that's eight Sundays a year, or maybe 10, 12, 11, depending on how the Buccaneers are doing with the playoffs. Here, there's always other things to do. You're always competing with the water, the weather. You're competing with fun things to do in the Tampa Bay area that put this area on the map long before the Devil Rays were ever here. And that makes it hard. Now, somebody's going to say, well, what about the Lightning? The Lightning sell out 41 dates a year. That's true too. But again, it's half the number of dates that the Rays have. And the Lightning didn't draw well for a long time, not before they became maybe the most well-run franchise in the NHL over the last 15 years. Did they start selling out every game? So you put those two things together, and it's always going to be a tough recipe for the Rays, no matter where they play.
Pete Williams is my guest. He's a longtime author, baseball historian, longtime USA Baseball Weekly. He's written books on memorabilia as well as fitness and all sorts of places. You can find him on the internet. He's down in Tampa, and my resident guy on the street. How many games you go to?
Well, this year for the Rays, I've been to five or six over in
You live
Stine.
close to there now, right?
Closer. I moved a little closer. So it's about an easy 20 to 25-minute drive, and it's fun. It really is. Now, the heat is oppressive, and it was oppressive in May.
Well, that's what
And
I'm saying. We're learning about the dome situation is that like this waterfront Al Lang spring training vibe that I have on a March 18th night when it's pleasant. That's been my spring training experience. That's not real. I mean, I've been to Florida plenty of time. My wife's mother lives down there. She goes down and gets mosquito bites and hates this time of year. But I saw it on TV, and I'm thinking that's the lesson learned here that you can't. I mean, the Marlins learned that for years, right? Now they got a dome, and that thing's just a disgrace. I mean, it's just awful. Everything about that experience is awful. I hope Tampa can learn from that, and I guess that's why I'm asking you, is saying the thing should have worked all along. You moved down there 30 years ago thinking it would work. Now you got a new guy, new gig, you know, open palette, right? Like, the whiteboard is there for whatever they're going to do. It seems to me that good ideas can save these things. Good ideas can make these things thrive. I believe that, and I'll get to that in a minute with you on the Orioles thing, because I want to stay on the Tampa thing because I find it fascinating of where that template is that makes the baseball version of the Tampa Lightning, that makes the baseball version of what the Orioles were here for 40 years before they came and screwed it up. It's what can make this good and viable and all that they say it's going to be, and not what baseball fans feel like right now, which is they're just after my ATM card. You know what I mean? They just think they think I'm a wallet. They don't. Pete, this new group is so blind to everything. Like I'm being really. I got a WNST text brought to you by Cole Roofing and Gordian Energy. Luke sent it out. They moved the game time up on the fans. They told the fans at 9 in the morning, we're playing at 4 today, not 6. So get here because it's going to rain. I've never heard of. I don't know how they mobilized workers and people and like all of that, but they just woke up in the morning and said, "Game's not tonight; it's this afternoon today." Sorry. Like
we
I just could. I've never heard of such a thing. I could not believe it.
Yeah, the closest you've seen is NFL with some of their flex scheduling, where they've kind of moved some things around, and people who already had plans say they're screwed because they've already paid to be there on this date. Maybe they're traveling from the other town. But we're seeing more and more of this. And how do you make plans? How do you, hey, I can't make it at 4. I work. I can't, I was planning to be there at 6:30.
Work, sitter, dinner, plans, relatives,
Traffic,
picking people
everything.
up, kids are at
Yes.
school. Like like, do you just got to get the game in, or do the people matter at all?
No.
Like, and in playoff games, I sort of understand television, and game five might be at 1, it might be at 7. It's Friday. We'll figure it. That was an FU enough when I was holding Phillies playoff tickets a number of years ago. And I'm like, is the game 1? Is it 4? Is it 7? When is the game? I need to know when the game is. It's tomorrow, but when they're sending out text today and saying we're moving tonight's game up a couple of hours, figure it out. Like, who in the office thinks that's okay? And I guess the population thinks it's okay because fans didn't revolt. I mean, I guess anything's okay, which is, I mean, I look at who's running the country and we're dropping bombs on Iran. Anything can be justified. But from a business perspective, the Lightning wouldn't do that. You know what I'm saying? Or to piss fans off, they would have an idea of earning their fans. And the Rays are going to have to earn their fan. Baseball needs to earn their fans in every way. There's only a couple places where New York Yankees, Dodgers, it rolls off, but every other place, they're all sort of under review by their own fan base as they reach for our wallets, take games away when I'm in Toronto or Roku or Apple TV or whatever they're going to do, and behave with the arrogance of the NFL to think you'll just be lining up when we get playoff tickets and you'll pay whatever we tell you to pay. And I remember that mentality here. It's gone. Brooks is dead. Like, it's over for that. They need to figure this out moving forward. And I don't know if they have ideas, Pete. And I don't know that the people who have the ideas that I like their ideas.
Right. And no longer does television solve all, right? I mean, they justified, I think, for the longest time, hey, if we don't draw any fans, the television money is paying the bills. Well, that's not the case with baseball anymore. So they have to figure that out. You ask about, the Rays and what's going to be the panacea here. I think it is going to be the battery model from Atlanta. I think that's what everybody is pointing to. They're like, whoever the billionaire takes over with the Rays, he's going to say, well, look, it is going to be a challenge with a new stadium no matter what, but we're going to do so well on the real estate side of this, as are the Braves with everything around the battery. Wherever they build this new ballpark, it's going to be in an area of Tampa Bay area that can still be developed, the acreage around it. Jeffrey Vinnick did this with the Lightning. He didn't have as many acres to play with in downtown Tampa, but he had some, and he's done very well there. I mean, if you go to downtown Tampa today, you can't get your bearing. If you hadn't been to downtown Tampa in 15 years, you wouldn't get your bearings. You'd be like, where the heck am I? Because there's been so much development there. Some of the landmarks no longer exist other than the former Ice Palace. That's about it. There have been so many high rises and buildings and whatever, and that's all because of Jeffrey Vinnick, what he's been able to develop while he's been running, of course, the Lightning very well. And so that's the business model, I think, for anyone looking at the Rays. I'm going to make it on the real estate side. Yes, Stu Sternberg, I think, was looking at that, but I think part of him, as he's gotten out of this, said, you know what? I'm 66 years old. I've never been in love with this area. I've never spent much time here. Is this how I want to spend the rest of my life as a real estate developer in St. Petersburg? I think that's the bottom line, why he's cashing out, getting his 1.7 and putting his estate plan in place for his children. He's like, okay, I'm out. I don't want to be Mr. St. Pete. And I think if we look at other baseball owners who are getting into this, they want the Atlanta battery model for whatever that's going to be. Can you do it in Baltimore? Maybe. There's certainly room for it around Oriole Park at Camden Yards, not to the degree we're talking about in the Tampa Bay area, but
It
that's
can't be built up because of the tunnel underneath of it.
exactly. And so there's not the real estate upside there, but you know what? There is in a lot of other places, and they're looking. We know we're going to see this with Vegas with the A's, and we're going to see this with other teams that are looking around, whether they move or not. They're like, what's the real estate upside to a new ballpark in this community?
Pete Williams is my guest. The paradigm's changed, right? Because back when Larry Lucchino was fighting with the state to get money to build Camden Yards, it was, we are going to make this good for the community. we're gonna have hotels, we're gonna have tax revenue, we're gonna have Phillips is gonna sell crab cakes, we're gonna have the harbor. It's gonna bring people to the harbor. It's gonna help Penn Station. It's gonna help BWI. It's gonna help the toll booths that people are gonna come through tolls to come to Camden Yards and pay to park and be here and stay afterward and get a beer and go to the Rusty Scupper and chase girls at the Baja Beach Club. Oh, that was me. I'd eat wings at Hooters. That was me back in the day. It was going to do all of that. And somewhere along the line, Angelos got super greedy. I was explaining to my pal Todd Radom, who was here this weekend, about the Hilton being built on that land. And Angelos wanted it, and the city screwed it all up, and the city screwed it up royally. As a guy who lost his ass on the tax base living in the city for 19 years, I can attest to that. But the idea was to lift the boats, and everybody made money. It would all channel back. Baseball is so arrogant, broke, and bankrupt of ideas that the idea now is we can't stand on our own. We need to have the real estate piece in order to finance all. And that was a Bob Kraft model with his mall up in at Gillette Stadium up in Foxborough, where they built a stadium in the middle of there is no nothing there. It's in the middle of a cornfield on Route 1. And the battery model is basically saying what the Padres did, what the Orioles did, maybe what the Indians tried to do, and the Tigers, which was be a civic partner in putting this baseball team down that everybody drinks into. They want a model where they drink it all out. And that was how Angelos killed the Sports Legends Museum, the Jeppe Museum, the Harbor, everything, the government buildings, everything around there, because if he couldn't drink in it, he didn't want to own it. And the only ones I can see who made any money were the guys over at Pickles Pub. They created the battery model across the street, and the Angeles people absolutely hated that they got all of that money, and that money wasn't on the inside like it was at Yawkey Way at Fenway Park, where we could annex that, kind of like Trump annexing, I don't know, Greenland or Canada or Mexico or something like that. And I think that model in Baltimore is a very dangerous model in a lot of ways, to say the reason you're here was to lift everything in the blocks around it, not to usurp it and build a compound around how much money you can make because it worked in Atlanta. I don't know, Pete, if that's your idea and that's your model times 30 or times the 15 problems you have, including Las Vegas, including whatever Sacramento is going to be, and all of these new markets, Portland, that you're going to need to steal whatever next team there's going to be. I just don't see a thriving industry. And, I did 30 ballparks in 30 days 10 years ago, and I go back now and I say, where in these places has it gotten stronger because of this? Cincinnati built a battery against the water with their new stadium as well. And I don't see it as sustainable. I'm not Zimbalist or some economic person, but like, I've been to all these places and sniffed around as a reporter, as a tourist, as a fan, as all of that, in season, out of season. I'm still waiting for the first good baseball idea, and I was really hopeful that the Rubenstein people would come in here and be really smart. And from the outside, I'd love to hear your observations of what you see of this, because I'm on the inside, and man, the reason I have you on is the Rays are coming here this week. The Rays are in a pennant race. The Orioles are in this close to being in sell-off mode if they get swept this weekend.
Yeah, and so I think you're right when you look at this model, and going back to the Larry Lucchino days, he had to do a big sales job just to get the city or the state to finance the stadium. Now we're starting with the negotiations. Oh, it's just a given, city and county and state. You are going to pay for the stadium, and you are going to give us the development rights to everything around it. Larry Lucchino was arguing, hey, build the stadium and then you can benefit from everything that you can build around it. So Larry, when he helped get the San Diego stadium built, yeah, it was kind of inching its way toward the battery. He didn't have much to work with in Fenway Park. They didn't have much to build around, but he did what he could and did a nice job of converting converting that. But I think if he was still with us today and signed as a consultant for well, I don't think Baltimore would be in the mix, but say Tampa Bay hired him as a consultant of some sort, then yes, I think he would be pressing for the battery model as well. Is that good for baseball? Is that a good business model for the game? No, of course not. It's just a good business model for the billionaires and private equity types that are taking over and buying into baseball teams. So yes, I don't think there is an answer. You can try. Theo Epstein did a great job improving the on-field product several years ago. I think it's great that we have more base stealing. We have the pitch clock and that sort of things. The games are now at 210 rather than 245. That helps. But yeah, the product itself, it's just not there. And do I have any ideas for how Baltimore is going to improve? No, I don't. And so that's the tragedy of it. When I look at what that was in the 90s, when Baltimore kind of surprised the world, shocked the world with this new stadium business model, and thus, crushed baseball on the field and off business wise, and was the most profitable teams throughout the 90s, averaging what, 3.56 million fans a season, which is staggering. And to think that they can't even be anywhere close to that. And they've gone from what was perceived, at least from a baseball standpoint, to be a big market, not a big market, but a big revenue team for the longest time, into where they are now, where they're, essentially they're not Tampa Bay revenue wise, and there's been other factors involved, but they're in a far worse place than we are here in Tampa Bay, even with the roof blown off the top.
Pete, we've been at it 45 minutes, and I'll just say it started right at the beginning, which is you got a new owner coming. There's hope. There's hope. There's lots of hope. I went through that last year. And now that I sit here this year and I'm like, these people have no idea what they're doing. And I know the people in New York that run Major League Baseball don't really. I mean, they're playing games in Australia and Japan and all these places, and they can't figure out their own franchises. They can't figure out the athletics, right? I mean, that's another story unto itself. That's a 2-decade mess. Like, and that's not even close to being sorted out. They've moved the team and they have nowhere to go with it. And one of my dear friends was the old sports editor of the Sacramento Bee, Tom Cousins. He came on a couple of weeks ago, and he's a bleeding heart Oriole fan, and he lives in Sacramento. But he paid $90 for tickets that day, and they were $10 at game time because he bought into the early Barbra Streisand model of get your tickets now, and they'll be $5 later. And nobody in Sacramento wants it either. I mean, it's like hot potato to some degree, which I guess it's important that Tampa sells all 12,000 of their seats all year long. Is that in the cards? Because it was $10 to get in last week when the Orioles played there.
Yeah, I mean, you could just wait till game time. That's what people do. You just now that we all have phones and we can wait outside until 3 minutes before first pitch, and we're like, oh, tickets are $9 now. Click, let's do that. Yeah, I was the idiot who on the second game of the season against the Pirates, I paid $65 face value for tickets, and then I thought, oh, I could have waited and paid $9. And so that's what you do now. And so I pity the poor people who bought into the idea that I better buy season tickets because that's the only way I'm going to see the Rays this year. So they paid a staggering amount for those season tickets in Steinbrenner Field. So yeah, it's crazy. I think it would be so insane, and it's a possibility that they could play the World Series at Steinbrenner Field this year with 10,500 seats. Imagine how hot those tickets are going to be. And not only that, imagine if the Rays win the World Series in Steinbrenner Field. George Steinbrenner, whose gravesite is 8 miles away. People think he's buried in New York. No, he has a gigantic mausoleum in Pasco County, of all places, because that's where his kids put him. Imagine that. He'd be rolling over in that mausoleum if in Steinbrenner Field, the Rays win the World Series on November 1st or whatever it's going to be. And here he is, where the Yankees have not won a World Series since he died in 2010, which is no coincidence.
If these kids knew anything about, classic cinema, they would have a George Steinbrenner naked model in the clubhouse and be ripping the pieces off of it as they go to a championship at Steinbrenner Field. Pete Williams is here. He hates the Yankees, which is why we've been friends forever. And is down at Tampa Bay, the Rays this week. Just on the field for the Orioles, you have anything that you have to say about what's going on? And obviously lead us down a whole different direction with pitching and arms falling off. But this has been a precipitous fall, and a bunch of young guys that haven't panned, and a bunch of pitching that hasn't worked, and a new ownership that doesn't get it.
Yeah, you think the on-field product, it's it's the same nucleus they've been developing that won 100 games 2 years ago, that won 91 games last year. You think they should keep improving, right? I mean, they've got brought in some pitchers who guys who pitched well for the Rays, the ageless Charlie Morton, Zach Efron, who was here for a while, and so, but I mean, it's just not happening for them, and part of that's management, part of it's yeah, some injuries, but everyone's injured now. No one stays healthy anymore. No one can pitch 200 innings anymore. No one can play 162 games. No one plays 145 games anymore. And so I don't know if the Orioles have any more excuses than anybody else, but the on-field product should be a lot better because they have a nucleus of young talent better than at least 20 teams in baseball.
They've already got the manager fired, and since then, we're all managing the team. Pete Williams is here. He is a baseball historian, author. You got anything going on? I mean, your Card Sharks thing's 30 years old. I mean, I was going to whip out my Milk Duds Louis Aparicio box here and show you my Kellogg's cards and do all that stuff. But are you still a nerd about collecting a little bit, or no? Is that sailed
Sure.
for you?
No, absolutely. I think when you live in Florida for as long as I do, where you don't have basements, you don't have attics, you have the threat of flooding taking out your house and whatever, you tend to pare down your collection by necessity. And I'm glad I have. I have held on to some things. But I think with my book, Card Sharks, which chronicled the growth of the sports card business, especially the Upper Deck Company, that book celebrated its 30th anniversary in April. And I think they are finally shopping the movie rights to it, which would be pretty exciting if we can find some sort of young actor like a Miles Teller type, I think, to play Richard McWilliam. Richard McWilliam had a real cheesy mustache, and Miles Teller in Top Gun Maverick had a real cheesy mustache. I was like, he could be Richard McWilliam. So we'll see. Will there be a movie made? Will there be a documentary made of it? I don't know, but I look forward to that. And the wheels of Hollywood turn very slowly, but who knows? Maybe someday we'll see Card Sharks the movie.
Well, the memorabilia business is still there, and it keeps me alive some days because sometimes it's like Seinfeld, man. I'm in love with the laundry sometimes with old stuff, but I wish we had more meat on the bone here in the middle of the heat of June of a pennant race. Pete Williams is down in Tampa living the good life, doing what I should have done 30 years ago, sold it all off to the mosquitoes and the outdoor of baseball. Well, I hope you get to a few more games at Steinbrenner Field, and I hope that you pick the nights when it's not 94 and balmy and chance of rain, you know?
We'll try.
Pete Williams is here. I love having him on. I only get him on once a year, and I keep him too long and run him around a little bit. But he needs to be run a little bit more because he's more athletic than me anyway. He's got more endurance, an endurance athlete. Pete Williams. I'm just an endurance sports radio guy here, eating crab cakes out on the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. It's all brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. We're going to be at Di Pasquale's on the 8th. That's going to be legendary in the morning. We're going to do that before it gets too hot. Sure we are. And then on the 10th, we're going to be inside at Costas in Timonium at the racetrack at the new location. We're going to be at 1623 Brewing out in Eldersburg. I am doing 27 of my favorite things to eat, 27 days in the month of August for our 27 years of doing what I love, which is this, talking baseball. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop bitching about the Orioles being in last place because that's who we are. We're Baltimore Positive.